My name is Kathy Harper. I'm 36 years old, and tonight my life fell apart between 2 bites of reheated pasta. Gary sat across from me at the small kitchen table we'd shared for 7 years, elbows on the wood, scrolling his phone with that detached expression I'd grown used to. The light above us buzzed faintly. It was one of those ordinary silent weeknights when nothing happens, until everything does. He looked up, sighed, and said it like he'd been rehearsing it for weeks. "You're not the woman I fell in love with, Kathy. You've lost your spark." For a second, I thought I misheard him. "What?" He set the phone down. "You used to be different, excited about life, ambitious. Now you just settle. It's like you're content being average." Average. That word landed like a slap. I put my fork down slowly. "Where's this coming from?" "Mistake number 1," I whispered inside my head, engaging. But I asked anyway, out loud. He leaned back, folding his arms. "I was just talking to Vanessa earlier. Remember her? My ex. She's opening a design firm in LA. She said it's terrifying, but exhilarating. That's who she's always been. And then there's you, same job, same apartment, same everything. You've just stopped." I felt my chest tighten, the air suddenly thick with humiliation. He didn't even notice. "Gary," I said quietly, "Vanessa isn't your benchmark for life." He smirked. "Maybe not, but at least she still pushes herself. You used to talk about starting your own consulting agency. You had ideas, goals. Now you just work part-time. Scroll through Pinterest, wait for me to get home." "I work full-time," I corrected. He laughed softly, not cruelly, but with that patronizing edge that made me wish he'd just shout instead. "You call that full-time, you leave at 4. You spend more time decorating this place than building your career." My fingers trembled slightly as I reached for my glass of water. "I thought making a home together was something you wanted." "I wanted a partner, not a decorator," he snapped. Silence filled the kitchen like fog. The refrigerator hummed. I could hear the faint sound of the neighbor's TV through the wall. Some commercial about vacations and happy families. I stared at the steam rising from the pasta bowl between us, wondering when we had stopped being one of those couples who laughed at dinner. "So what do you want me to do, Gary?" He shrugged. "I don't know. Find yourself again. Get that spark back. Because this version of you..." He gestured vaguely toward me, his voice softening, but the words still cruel. "This version is boring." That one cut deeper than I expected. I nodded slowly, my throat tightening. "Boring. Got it." He sighed like the victim. "Don't take it personally, Kathy. I'm just being honest. I care about you. I do. I just miss the woman I met." I could have cried. I didn't. I just stared at him, this man who once swore he loved every side of me, now cataloging the parts I'd lost because I'd spent years prioritizing us instead of me. "Okay," I said finally. His brows knit together. "Okay, what?" "You're right. Things need to change." For a flicker of a moment, relief softened his face. He thought this was the part where I'd promised to fix myself for him. But instead, I stood up, pushed in my chair, and said calmly, "I'll start by being the woman who knows when to leave." He blinked. "Wait, what?" "I'm done trying to prove I'm still interesting enough for you to look up from your phone," I said. "You want ambition? Watch me." I walked down the hall, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I pulled the suitcase from the closet, the one we'd used on our last vacation before everything went cold. Clothes first, then laptop, charger, toothbrush. No tears, no yelling, just motion. He followed me, his voice echoing from the kitchen. "Kathy, don't be dramatic. I didn't say I wanted you to leave." "I know," I said, zipping the bag shut. "You just said you don't love who I am anymore." "That's not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" He hesitated. "I meant you've changed." "Exactly," I said, slinging the strap over my shoulder. "So have you." When I passed him in the hallway, he reached out, but I stepped back. For the first time, I noticed how small he looked, not in size, but in energy. The same man who once filled every room with laughter now couldn't even stand the silence he'd created. "Where will you go?" he asked quietly. "I don't know," I said truthfully, "but it'll be somewhere that doesn't make me feel small." The door clicked behind me. I didn't cry until I got into the car. The streetlights blurred through the windshield as I sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel, pulse racing. My chest hurt, that deep hollow ache when something you built cracks open. But beneath the pain, there was something else. Relief. Not peace, not yet, but relief. I drove aimlessly for an hour, letting the city lights blur past the bakery we used to visit on Sundays, the park where he once kissed me in the rain, all fading into background noise. Eventually, I stopped in front of a small 24-hour diner, the kind with peeling red booths and the smell of burnt coffee. The waitress didn't ask why my eyes were red. She just poured me a cup and left the pot. I stared at my reflection in the window, faint, fractured by the glare of neon lights. I didn't recognize the woman staring back. She looked tired, hollowed out. But under the exhaustion, there was something sharper, a flicker, a spark. I took a deep breath and whispered half to myself, half to her reflection. You wanted ambition, Gary? You'll see it, just not for you. When the coffee cooled and the city quieted, I opened my phone. Searched for an old contact, my former mentor, someone who'd once urged me to start my own consulting business years ago. The last message from him was dated 2 years back. If you ever decide to stop playing small, call me. I typed slowly, thumbs trembling. Hi, it's Kathy. I think I'm ready. I hit send. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something heavy lift from my chest. No one tells you this about rock bottom. It's not made of pain. It's made of space. Empty, terrifying space that you can build something new on. The next morning, I woke up in a motel off the highway. The sheets smelled like bleach. The air conditioner rattled. But the sunlight spilling through the thin curtains felt different, bright, insistent, like it refused to let me hide. I didn't know where I was headed, only that it would be forward. And as I sat there with cold coffee and my suitcase at my feet, I whispered the words that would become my quiet promise. That was the night Gary lost me, and the night I started finding myself. The first week after I left, Gary felt like standing in an echo chamber, every thought louder than the last. The silence of the motel room was suffocating at first. No clinking of his coffee mug in the morning. No soft hum of his favorite playlist. Just me, my laptop, and the faint smell of industrial cleaner. But on the 7th morning, something shifted. I woke up before sunrise, opened my notebook, and started writing Harper Digital Strategies. It sounded ridiculous at first, like naming a dream too soon. But the more I looked at it, the more real it became. A simple phrase, but it was mine. By the end of that week, I'd rented a small studio apartment, one room with a kitchenette and a view of a cracked brick wall. The floor creaked, the radiator hissed like an angry cat, but it was mine. Every corner, every imperfect tile, every quiet evening belonged only to me. I spent the next few days registering the business, setting up a cheap website, updating my resume, and cold emailing companies I'd once worked with. I told them I was offering independent consulting services. Out of 10 emails, 7 ignored me. 2 replied politely with, "We'll keep you in mind," and 1 said yes. That single yes felt like oxygen. It was a small project, digital workflow optimization for a boutique design firm, but it paid just enough to cover rent. The client didn't care that I was working from a desk made of 2 boxes and an old door I found on Facebook Marketplace. I worked 12 hours a day, sometimes more. I didn't stop until my eyes burned from the screen. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't freeing in the way movies describe independence. It was raw and exhausting, but it was mine. By month 2, I'd completed 3 projects. The clients paid on time, even left glowing testimonials. That's when I printed my first business card, not because I needed it, but because holding it felt like proof. Kathy Harper, Digital Strategies. There it was. My name in bold, no longer an afterthought, attached to someone else's ambition. Still, there were nights when loneliness crept in, like fog through a cracked window. Nights when I missed the way Gary used to smile at me when I was too tired to cook. But then I'd remember how his smile had turned into a smirk, and I'd get back to work. My therapist once told me, Kathy, sometimes people make you feel small because that's the only way they can feel big. She was right. During one session, she asked, "What do you miss most about him?" I thought about it for a long time. "I think I miss who I thought I was when he looked at me," I said, before I realized his approval was the only reflection I was allowed to have. She nodded slowly. "So maybe you don't miss him. You miss the mirror." That night, I stopped checking his social media altogether. A few weeks later, a mutual friend, Tessa, called me. She sounded hesitant the way people do when they want to gossip, but don't want to seem cruel. "I saw Gary the other day," she said. "He's different. He looked tired. He said work's been rough." I kept my voice steady. "I hope he figures it out." She paused. "He also mentioned you, said you're trying too hard to prove something." I smiled at that, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. "Let him think that," I said softly. "It's easier than admitting he underestimated me." After we hung up, I opened my project folder and stared at the files, waiting for review. My hands were trembling, not from anger, but from adrenaline. I was proving something, just not to him. By the 3rd month, I could afford a gym membership again. Nothing fancy, just a local place with flickering fluorescent lights and rusted weights. I'd get there every morning at 6 earbuds in mind, empty. At first, it was about health. Then it became ritual, discipline, control. Every drop of sweat felt like a small reclamation. There's a strange peace in rebuilding yourself piece by piece. You stop waiting for validation. You stop apologizing for progress. You just move, quietly, consistently, relentlessly. One morning, as I packed up my gym bag, I overheard a woman at the front desk on the phone. You'd be surprised how many people come here after a breakup. I guess heartbreak's cheaper than a personal trainer. I smiled to myself. Maybe heartbreak is a kind of trainer. It forces you to confront the muscles you forgot you had. When my business started bringing in real money, I upgraded my old laptop. Then, one afternoon, I bought a small potted plant for my desk. The cashier asked if I wanted a gift receipt. No, I said, it's for me. That night, I placed the plant next to my computer and stared at it, like it was a living metaphor, fragile, green, stubborn. I whispered, you and me both. By month 4, I started noticing subtle shifts. Clients referred others to me. People I hadn't heard from in years sent LinkedIn messages. Saw your new company. Amazing work. One evening, after sending an invoice, I sat by the window with a cup of tea. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Gary saw your post. Harper Digital Strategies, huh? Looks like you're doing well. For a full minute, I just stared at the message. The name on the screen didn't sting anymore. I typed slowly. You were right. Things did need to change. I just stopped needing your approval to do it. Then I put my phone face down and didn't check for his reply. 2 weeks later, my therapist asked, do you feel different now? I smiled. I feel like myself again, or maybe for the first time. She leaned back. That's progress. But be careful, people who lose control over you often come back when they realize they can't pull the strings anymore. I nodded, tucking that warning away like a prophecy. Because deep down I knew she was right. Gary wasn't finished with me yet. One rainy Sunday, I cleaned my apartment from top to bottom. Not because I had guests coming, but because it felt good to take care of something. The plant by the window had sprouted a new leaf. I stood there, arms crossed, watching the rain blur the city lights. I thought about how far I'd come from the woman who walked out with a suitcase and shaking hands to someone who had invoices, deadlines, and purpose. I whispered to the window, my reflection faint against the glass. They said I'd regret leaving. They were right, but not in the way they think. Because the only regret I had was not leaving sooner. By the time spring arrived, Harper Digital Strategies was no longer just an idea, it was alive, breathing, demanding, thriving. 3 clients had turned into 7. My days were a blur of video calls, spreadsheets, and late-night revisions. I was exhausted, but for the first time in years, it was the good kind of tired, the kind that comes from purpose, not pressure. I'd wake before dawn, make coffee strong enough to wake the dead, and check my inbox. New inquiries, new contracts. My name was being mentioned in circles I used to dream about joining. Sometimes I'd catch myself smiling mid-email. That surprised me more than anything. Smiling alone without needing someone else to validate it. A few weeks later, I upgraded my apartment. Nothing extravagant, just a clean 1-bedroom with sunlight that poured in like gold every morning. The first time I turned the key, I whispered, "Welcome home," and actually meant it. I bought secondhand furniture, painted one wall, navy blue, and set up a real desk, not the makeshift door balanced on boxes. And right in the center of it, I placed the little green plant that had survived every rough week with me. A small reminder that growth doesn't need permission. The turning point came when one of my early clients referred me to a mid-size marketing agency. The CEO offered me a 3-month consulting contract worth more money than I'd ever made at my old job. I remember signing the agreement, staring at my name on the dotted line. My hands shook not from fear, but from disbelief. The first thing I did afterward, I treated myself to a decent used car. Nothing flashy, just a silver Mazda with clean seats and working air conditioning. As I drove it off the lot, I realized how symbolic that moment was, leaving behind the bus rides, the shared schedules, the dependence. Freedom had a hum, and it sounded like that quiet engine under my hand. Of course, success doesn't stay secret for long. One Friday evening, while reviewing client reports, my phone buzzed. "Gary saw your post. Looks like you're doing great. Guess I was wrong about you." I froze, the words blurring slightly on the screen. The same man who told me I'd lost my spark was now watching it from afar. For a brief moment, old habits whispered, respond, explain, prove yourself. But that voice had grown quieter lately. I took a breath and typed slowly, each word deliberate. "You weren't wrong, Gary. I just stopped letting your opinion decide who I could be." Then I hit send and left the conversation there, a digital tombstone for every version of me that had waited for his approval. He didn't reply. I didn't expect him to. A week later, my friend Tessa called again, her tone cautious but curious. Gary and Vanessa broke up, she said. Apparently she's been having a rough time. He's miserable. I didn't say anything at first. Just listened to the rain against my window. Tessa sighed. He's been asking about you, you know. Says he misses your steadiness. That made me laugh, not mockingly, but with a kind of detached wonder. Of course he does, I said. Chaos misses calm the same way drought misses rain. You're not even curious what happened between them, she asked. No, I said simply. I'm done writing sequels to stories that ended for a reason. That night I posted a small update on LinkedIn. Nothing flashy, just 3 years ago, I almost gave up on myself. Today I run my own firm. Progress doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen when you stop apologizing for wanting more. It was honest, quietly proud. The next morning, my phone was flooded with messages, congratulations from former coworkers, praise from strangers, a few potential clients asking for quotes. And one message stood out not because it was flattering, but because it was familiar. From Vanessa R. Message, hi Kathy. I saw your post. You're really doing amazing. I'd love to grab coffee sometime, maybe talk business. I stared at the message for a long time, remembering how she'd once bragged about taking risks while I played it safe. The irony almost made me laugh. Instead, I closed the app, no reply. The next day, while meeting a client at a cafe downtown, I caught a reflection in the window. A man sitting 2 tables away pretending to scroll through his phone. Gary. He looked thinner, paler. The same confident smirk replaced by exhaustion. When our eyes met, he smiled like we were old friends. I gave a polite nod and went back to my coffee. After my meeting ended, he approached. Kathy, he said softly, as if saying my name too loudly might break the moment. You look great. Thanks. He hesitated, glancing at my laptop bag. Business going well? It is, I said, standing very. There was a flicker of regret behind his eyes, the kind that comes when someone realizes they've misjudged the wrong person. He took a breath. I'm happy for you. I smiled, not out of bitterness, but out of closure. So am I. Then I walked past him, my heels clicking against the tile, a quiet metronome, marking the rhythm of everything I'd rebuilt. That night I told my therapist about the encounter. Did seeing him stir anything up, she asked. I thought for a moment. No anger, no pain, just distance. Like watching a movie I've already seen. She smiled. Then you've healed more than you think. A week later, my old mentor, the one who'd answered my late-night message months ago, called unexpectedly. Kathy, I've been following your progress, he said. You've built something impressive. How do you feel? I paused, looking around my small but sunlit office. The desk cluttered with Post-its, the little plant still thriving by the window. I feel like myself, I said. And for a long time, that didn't feel possible. Later that evening, I opened my journal, the one I'd started on the night I left Gary. I flipped back to the first page where I'd written, Find the Spark. Below it, I added a new line. The spark was never gone. It was just buried under someone else's shadow. And for the first time in years, I felt something close to peace. Because success wasn't about proving him wrong anymore. It was about finally being right with myself. I wasn't chasing him anymore, but he was starting to chase the version of me he destroyed. It started with an email. Subject line, Potential Collaboration Opportunity. The sender's name almost made me laugh. Vanessa R. I hovered over the message for a long moment, debating whether to open it. Eventually, curiosity won. Hi, Kathy. I've been working on a new interior design project for a commercial client who also needs digital consulting. I immediately thought of you. It could be a great partnership for both of us. Professional, of course. Let me know if you'd like to discuss details over coffee. Vanessa. Professional, of course. The phrasing was too careful, the tone too polished. It wasn't a coincidence. It was an entry attempt, the kind that wears a business smile while hiding nostalgia underneath. I closed the email without replying. 3 days later, another one arrived. Hey, just following up. The client's asking for timelines. I told them you'd be perfect for the digital side. Let's meet soon. Still no reply. By the end of the week, I received a text. Unknown number. Hi, Kathy, it's Gary. Can we talk? No greeting, no apology, just entitlement disguised as casual civility. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before typing, There's nothing left to talk about. He replied almost instantly. It's about business. Vanessa's client wants to hire you. She asked me to reach out since you've been ignoring her. A quiet laugh slipped from my lips, short, sharp, humorless. They'd found a way to disguise their personal chaos as a business opportunity. Tell Vanessa, I typed back, that I don't mix professional work with people who mistake manipulation for communication. And that was that, or so I thought. 2 mornings later, as I was preparing slides for a new client, my office phone rang. The receptionist's voice crackled through the line. Kathy, there's someone here asking to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's urgent. Who is it? Vanessa. My stomach dropped not from fear, but from sheer disbelief. I'm not available, I said firmly. Please tell her to leave her card. A pause. She says she'll wait. I stood for a moment staring out the window, watching the rain streak down the glass. I could almost see her downstairs, sitting on the lobby couch in some designer coat, playing the role of the calm professional, while chaos simmered underneath. I exhaled. Tell her she has 2 minutes. When Vanessa walked in, she looked nothing like the woman I remembered. Her hair, once meticulously styled, was thrown into a loose knot. Her eyes were ringed with exhaustion, her voice soft, too soft, like someone rehearsing contrition. Kathy, she said with a strained smile, you look incredible. Cut to the part where you tell me why you're here. She blinked, thrown off by my tone. I wanted to clear the air. We got off on the wrong foot before. Which part was the wrong foot, I asked. The part where you compared me to you, or the part where you made sure Gary never stopped? Her face faltered. That's not fair. Neither was the way you tried to pull me into your little business trap. It wasn't a trap, she protested. I really thought we could work together. I've changed. I looked at her, really looked. The desperation behind the calm smile, the way her hand twisted her purse strap. You haven't changed, Vanessa, I said quietly. You're just losing your audience. For a moment, she said nothing. Her lips parted, but the words didn't come. Finally, she whispered, Gary misses you. That made me laugh, an actual laugh, genuine this time. Of course he does. Narcissists always miss their mirrors. Vanessa flinched. You don't have to be cruel. I'm not being cruel, I said, leaning forward. I'm being clear. I have nothing to give either of you. Not my time, not my pity, not my energy. Whatever unfinished story you two are writing, leave me out of it. She opened her mouth to argue, but I stood up, signaling the conversation was over. Good luck with your client, I said. And with everything else. I walked her to the door. Her perfume lingered long after she was gone, the same sharp floral scent I remembered from years ago, still clinging to the air like old resentment. That evening, I told Tessa about the encounter over the phone. She really showed up, Tessa asked. She did, and she mentioned Gary. Let me guess he's unraveling. I smiled faintly. Probably, but that's not my story anymore. Tessa exhaled through the receiver. You sound lighter. I am. I admitted. I think I finally understand what closure actually is. Which is, it's realizing I don't need to hear sorry to move on. Over the next few weeks, I noticed small things. Gary watching my LinkedIn stories, mutual friends hinting that he'd been asking about me, and even one late-night text that I didn't open but saw enough of to know its tone. I made a mistake. I deleted it before I could read the rest. My therapist's words echoed in my mind. People who lose control over you often come back when they realize they can't pull the strings anymore. So I blocked his number. Then I blocked Vanessa's too. It was almost satisfying how quiet life became afterward. That silence didn't mean loneliness, it meant peace. I poured that energy into my business. New projects rolled in. I hired a part-time assistant, a bright graduate named Chloe, who worked hard and laughed easily. She brought new energy to the office optimism I hadn't felt in years. Sometimes when she'd stay late, I'd see a younger version of myself in her wide-eyed, eager, unscarred by love's small cruelties. I caught myself giving her advice. I wish someone had given me. Never let anyone convince you that stability means smallness. You can be steady and still burn. But even as life moved forward, there was one night that tested my calm. A late email came through from a corporate domain I recognized. Subject Security Consultancy Request. Westwick Properties. From Trevor Westwick, CFO. I scanned the body of the message. A legitimate project. Impressive budget. Perfect fit for my expertise. Then, at the end of the email, you were recommended by Vanessa Reynolds, who's overseeing our interior redesign. I laughed under my breath, of course. They were still trying. I typed my reply carefully. Thank you for your inquiry, Mr. Westwick. Unfortunately, I have a strict policy against projects involving personal acquaintances to avoid conflicts of interest. However, I'd be happy to refer 2 other excellent consultants. I attached their names, pressed send, and sat back. Within an hour, another message arrived. Not from Trevor, from Vanessa. Are you serious, Kathy? You just turned down a major contract because of me. Grow up. This is business. I didn't reply. Instead, I saved the email under a folder labeled Boundaries. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Closure isn't always a conversation, I wrote in my journal the next morning. Sometimes it's silence. I underlined it twice. Then I closed the notebook, opened my laptop, and got back to work. because their noise, their chaos no longer belonged in my story. Let them talk. I was done being the villain in stories they wrote. 4 quiet months passed. No emails, no texts, no accidental run-ins. It was like someone had finally closed a door that had been left half open for too long. Work flourished. My client list doubled, then tripled. I hired Chloe full-time and brought in a second consultant to handle new accounts. My days began early, ended late, and for the first time, I loved that rhythm. It wasn't survival anymore. It was creation. Then, one ordinary Tuesday morning, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Hi, this is Bethany. I know you don't want to hear from me, but you should know Vanessa's in the hospital. Breakdown. Her mom found her. She's not doing well." I stared at the message for a long time, thumb hovering above the screen. The world around me blurred. Clients were waiting in the conference room. Chloe was asking about invoices, but for that moment, it all faded. Not guilt, not relief, just heaviness. I set the phone down and went back to the meeting. I could still hear my own voice presenting numbers and strategies, but it felt detached, like someone else speaking through me. That night, the phone rang again. A new number again. "Hello, Kathy." The voice was older, brittle, familiar. "This is Patricia, Vanessa's mother." I closed my eyes. "Patricia, You need to come. She's asking for you." My throat tightened. "That's not appropriate." "She's sick, Kathy. You know what you did to her. You left her humiliated. You and Gary ruined her life." Her words were knives thrown through static. "I didn't ruin her life," I said quietly. "She made her own choices. You flaunted your success online, the car, the business. How did you think that made her feel? I don't post to hurt anyone. I post to celebrate what I've built." Patricia's voice cracked. "You always were selfish." And just like that, the line went dead. I sat there for a long time, staring at the phone, heart oddly steady. I'd spent years letting guilt dictate my boundaries. Tonight I refused. The following morning, a letter arrived at my office, handwritten, no return address, but the cursive unmistakable. "Patricia again. You've destroyed my daughter. She can barely eat, barely speak. The man she loved turned against her, and you sat there pretending you were innocent. You built your success on her pain. I hope someday you feel what she feels, abandoned and worthless." The last sentence underlined twice. I folded the letter, neatly slipped it into an envelope, and placed it in a drawer marked Archive, Personal. Then I wrote one of my own. "Patricia, I'm sorry Vanessa is hurting. Truly. But I cannot take responsibility for choices I didn't make. I didn't leave to destroy anyone. I left to survive. I wish her healing, but I will not sacrifice mine to ease your blame. Kathy." I didn't send it. Some letters are written only to release what you refuse to carry anymore. Weeks went by. Life went on. Clients' deadlines, laughter with Chloe, quiet evenings watering the same plant that had now grown tall and vibrant by my window. One late afternoon, I signed a lease for a real office, glass walls, clean lines, 2 desks, a small conference table. When the realtor handed me the keys, I caught my reflection in the glass door hair pulled back. Posture, steady eyes, clear. "You built this," I whispered. It wasn't pride, it was peace. A month later, another unexpected message appeared, this time from a new LinkedIn profile. No photo, no job title, just the name, Vanessa Reynolds. "I'm sorry for everything. You didn't deserve the things I said or did. I'm working on myself now, and I finally understand why you left. I hope you're happy. You deserve that." I read it twice. It felt genuine, or maybe just exhausted. Growth and manipulation can look the same when seen through apology. I didn't respond. I didn't block her either. I just archived the message and went back to my work. That evening, standing in my new office, I looked out at the city. The sunset spilled orange light across the skyline, reflecting off the windows like fire. I thought about everything: Gary's contempt, Vanessa's bitterness, Patricia's blame. All of it had been noise that once shaped my silence. Now the only sound left was the soft hum of my computer and the quiet beat of my own pulse. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't vengeful. Just done. I smiled to myself, whispering the truth I'd been waiting to say for years. He said I wasn't the woman he fell in love with. He was right. I ran a hand across the smooth surface of my new desk, sturdy, grounded, unshakable. That woman existed only to make others comfortable. Outside, the city lights flickered to life. This one builds empires from the rubble. I turned off the lights, locked the door, and walked into the night, no longer chasing closure, no longer haunted by what was lost, just living.